You grew up in Park Forest, Illinois. How did you get introduced to music?
Music for me was kind of from my family. My mom used to listen to country music, and the song, she was really into Frank Sinatra as a kid, as a teenager. And my dad played harmonica, and really my introduction to music was AM radio. WLS was a big station in Chicago, played top 40, so it was Motown, hard rock, from the Doors to Aretha Franklin. One of my favorite bands early on was the Shy Lights. Musically, I took violin lessons as a first grader, and wasn't really into that, didn't like being teased about playing violin, and felt like that was like what all Japanese kids were supposed to do. So I kind of put a little strike on that, and my parents wanted me to do music, and I loved music, so I took piano lessons. And as a young child, I never really practiced a lot, so I never really played classical music. My teacher was like, well, we'll just have you play the pop hits, the John Brimhall favorites. And that's how I learned music, playing Proud Mary, Beatles songs. I used to play Imagine and Yesterday, Creedence Clearwater. That's kind of, that's how I started playing piano and singing. And goofy little things. Herb Alpert was one of the albums we had when I was a kid, and I used to run around the house going, I could play trumpet with my mouth, so like music's always been kind of this thing that no matter what, it was showing up for me, I guess.
And you kind of taught yourself in some ways with some lessons a little bit.
Pretty much, in bass especially, like, when I was in high school, we had, my sister played viola, so we had a viola in the house. I started playing viola like a guitar, and played to my Neil Young records and Led Zeppelin and the Grateful Dead, and I tried to play rock music by plucking a viola. Eventually bought an electric mandolin, and then when I moved to Washington with Kim Thiel, we were talking about, we should have our own band and blah, blah, blah. And so he's like, you should play bass, I'm like, yeah, I'll play bass. So that's when I went out and bought a bass and started playing bass guitar. Okay. So pretty much self-taught.
Yeah. Tell me, what was it that brought you from Illinois to Western Washington?
Okay. Might be a long story. But, I was in a high school that was part of it had three satellite schools, but one of the schools was called the Alternative Learning Process School. It was called ALPS. It was an open school classroom. There was about 90 people in it, so we could sign up to go there. And so it was the kind of thing where we had seminars. We didn't really go to classes. We would say like, hey, I want to read all these books about existentialism, or I want to read Aldous Huxley. About these kind of future. I want to read science fiction of the future, which of course has come true. All that stuff. Surveillance. We are a surveillance society. Anyway, I'm digressing. Where was I? I'm supposed to be talking about coming out to...
what was it that brought you to Western Washington?
Yeah, Western Washington. So out of ALPS, ALPS was a, alternative school. And so there's only a certain amount of alternative colleges in the country, and one of those is Evergreen State. So, I heard about Evergreen State College. A lot of the people that go into ALPS, were going to different colleges like that. So my friend Stuart Hollerman and I packed up our car and our bicycles, all our belongings, and drove off to Olympia, Washington to go to school. Stuart actually stayed, eventually opened up a recording studio, one of the recording studios that Soundgarden's first recordings was done at. So, we've had kind of this long tie going back to Park Forest, not only Kim Thiel, but my friend Stuart, who I grew up with from kindergarten. I've known him since kindergarten.
So so Evergreen State College brought you here. You came.
Yep.
Did you, and you went to school?
I never went to Evergreen State College. I came here trying to establish residency. Long story. Another long story. Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980. John Lennon was shot. And when Ronald Reagan was elected, I was working a job it was called the Civilian Education and Training Corps, or Association, CETA. They paid half of my wages and even before he took office, the program was stopped. And so half my wages went away, and my boss said, hey, we really can't afford to have you. So without a job, I said, I'm going to go move back home. So I went back to Illinois, spent that summer with Kim Thile, and Kim and I were like, I got to go back. And Kim was actually born in Seattle, so it was a place that he had thought about originally. And so the two of us packed up our car in 1981. Off we drove on our long journey across the country, cassette tapes in hand.
So you got to Seattle, and then how did you meet up with Chris Cornell and decide to start Soundgarden?
Soundgarden is I was playing in a band called The Altered, and we had a little house on 80th and Roosevelt. There's a little insurance agent there at the time, and it was a great place to practice because their business would finish at 5 o'clock, and we had a little loft above their business, and that was actually my bedroom, but it was all set up as a band room, and so we could play pretty much through the night. Neighbors never really complained too much. Well, we don't think. And there was it was a great place. So The Altered was kind of breaking up at that time. My roommate was a drummer, so he was moving out. And at the time, there was another band. Kim was playing with a friend of ours in a cover band doing rock and roll covers, 50s covers. And they auditioned a drummer through an ad in the Rocket. His name was Chris Cornell. And they needed a place to audition him at, and that became my house. So they came over to my house to audition Chris Cornell. And we were just talking a little bit. He was pretty quiet, but he said, "Hey, I kind of need a place to live." And I said, "Hey, my roommate's moving out in a couple weeks." So next thing I know, Chris is living with me with his drum set, and we're upstairs in that room playing drums and bass night after night for hours. And that's kind of the beginning of Soundgarden before even Kim joined up. Kim was still going to school in University of Washington. And so we were kind of waiting for, I said, "Hey, Kim wants to do a band with me." And me and Chris were, doing all the stuff, playing drums and bass together, kind of laying the foundation for what would become Soundgarden. And then when Kim's started freeing up time and his getting closer to graduating from school, we started playing together, and there you go.
That's how it started.
Yeah, and this is Chris. This is the thing people don't necessarily realize. Chris was an amazing drummer. We didn't realize that he sang until we started writing songs with lyrics, And then there's like that. Listen to that. Like, he's got this just amazing voice. It was pretty obvious right off the bat. And he was still coming into himself, trying to figure out what his voice was at that time. So it was kind of, I got to see Chris in a very young age, developing kind of where he would become, where he was going. So it's very, very interesting.
You saw him grow. He was a drummer, and then you heard him develop his voice.
Oh, he was a drummer. He sang from behind the drums, and we're like, we got to get this guy out in front. I mean, look, the guy is beautiful, right? He's very handsome. So those.
That's the beginning. Yeah. So Soundgarden really credited with igniting the grunge movement. What was it like to be part of that? Did you realize you were part of that at the time?
Not really. I mean, the thing in Seattle was there were a whole bunch of bands who were all friends. Really. I mean, most of Seattle was in places like this, about this size, and your 50 to 100 people were mostly in bands, or associated with the people in bands. And so it's kind of like a little community of like all of us checking each other out. We all knew each other. Those were really good times in Seattle when it was a smaller place, definitely.
When you were defining your tone and music, could you tell it was standing out differently from others? What was it that gave it that sound that other groups didn't have?
Kim and I always talked about what we wanted to do with music, so that was part of it. We listened to a lot of bands, talked about what we liked about other bands. A lot of it is just the stuff and talking with other bands, like comparing. We'd talk with other bands. What are you guys into? And just that's part of that. The grunge thing was kind of this mutual. Hey, we're heading this direction. Hey, check out what we're doing. And it was a little bit of bouncing ideas off each other in these kind of, not like where it's like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But, we're seeing each other, what we're doing, and kind of getting ideas from each other. That's kind of what established that sound, I think.
A little bit of collaboration.
It's kind of more like we're all kind of heading this direction, you know, we're coming from, you know, because at that time it was very new wave, punk oriented, and we're kind of taking it into this heavier scene, like, you know, and at that time it was more like, hey, that's the old music, that heavy metal stuff. That's just the old stuff. That's not punk. And so trying to, you know, incorporate those things and make our own music. And that's, you know, who knew that's what we were doing, but it is kind of what happened, you know?
So you're a bassist and a songwriter, but you're both. What other musical influences or other influences on your music were kind of shaping where you were taking your group and your sound? Not just other bands you were listening to, but what other things were playing into how you would write music or how you would play the bass?
Well, I mean, always for us, and for me especially, you know, the times that we live in, punk rock is a music that comes, it's an attitude. It's like, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it our own way. We don't like the world you're giving us. You know, there's a rebellion to it, right? So a lot of it was, hey, you know, my dad was an engineer. He went to work on the train in Chicago every day. That was the kind of life that I really didn't want for myself. You know what I mean? And so I saw that suburban living, especially the people going, like, you know, I watch people go on the train and sit there on the platform waiting for their train with their newspapers every day in their briefcase. And just watching that and seeing what that was, it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And so what we were doing was saying, we're going to create our life. I mean, it seems naive and whatever. And maybe I shouldn't say naive. It's what kids do. Like they make their own world. And for us, we wanted to make our own world. Politically, Ronald Reagan had been elected president. We were kind of delving into the first kind of right-wing invasion of losing rights, of people like saying, like, where is our freedom? Look at where we're at today. That's all I can say. I'm not going to go any further than that. It's really sad for me to see brown people rounded up on the streets for being brown. My parents were interned it's not even interned. It's called prison camps during World War II. They were citizens. My aunts and uncles, they were all interned. When I see this again, 100 years later, 80 years later, it breaks my heart. It really does.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart to see where we're at as a country. It really does.
When you left Soundgarden in 1989, is that right?
Yeah.
What was it that made you decide to leave? What was happening that you thought, I need a different direction?
There's a lot of stuff going on. Part of it is being coming from our punk rock roots, being on a major label. They didn't necessarily understand who we were at the time because this music was new. So we were one of the first bands from Seattle to be on there. Nirvana hadn't quite broke yet, so nobody really knew where to fit us into, and a lot of what we were getting was, hey, we're going to try to move you into the metal market. And for me, I was like, hey, we're punk rockers. We don't want to be part of the regular mainstream metal rock scene. We want to be our own thing. And I started feeling like my voice was not being heard as to where we were going. A lot of this is, you know, the direction of the whole band. And so when you kind of feel like, hey, they want to go this way, I'm not necessarily sure I want to go that way. So for me, it was understanding that this is a business and we're really an entity. We're no longer just a band. We're kind of we're a commodity. And I'm back here. I'm doing it again. But at the time, maybe I wasn't quite prepared for that, you know? And I felt like we were losing control of what we were as a band. But to their credit, Soundgarden did what they wanted to for the rest of their careers. And so for me, I'm really happy that they were able to continue with their own power like that.
Was it tough because they're also your friends?
Oh, definitely.
Was that hard to realize you needed something different for yourself?
Definitely. It was, you know, it was really hard. It's hard to walk away from something when it's getting that big. And I mean, we weren't as big as they became. And so it's hard to know that that's what was going to happen, but it was kind of obvious that something big was going to happen. And it is, it's you know, you're walking away from a life of glory. But for me, I'm very happy I did what I did, because it allowed me to pursue my interests, do different things, have a life that of anonymity for the most part. I mean, some of the, you know, some fame, with fame goes a lot of responsibility and personal freedom. So so in a lot of ways I've kept that. And you know, hey, you can't go back.
Would you have done it differently, or do you not even think about it?
Oh no, I wouldn't have done it differently. I think it was the right choice at the time, and it's the right choice today, and I'm totally happy with where I'm at. I've got tons of stuff going for myself anyway, you know.
Let's talk about what you did after, because I find it pretty fascinating. You decide you need a different direction. You leave Soundgarden. What happens next?
Okay. Well, I'd never been to college, so for all the Evergreen State College talk at the beginning, I had never gone to college, and it had been 10 years. I was 27, I believe, at the time. So I decided I went to Seattle Central for a year, and eventually went to University of Washington, and transferred up to Western Washington University with my wife. She was getting an environmental science degree up at Western, and I started getting into chemistry. And I mean, I know this sounds geeky to people who love rock and roll, but I love science and math. I love working numbers. And actually, when I started doing chemistry, doing quantum physics, I really kind of was like, I'm walking in the steps of giants doing these calculations. This is Einstein and Heisenberg. This is how our world works today. And I don't know, quantum physics to me is amazing. And just kind of being able to do these things with math and have it all like go, oh, that's where that concept came from. It's really interesting. So geekdom aside.
I think it's amazing. I think it's
so
amazing.
I went into chemistry. I worked as an environmental chemist, as an organic chemist, testing waters, drinking water and stuff like that for a long time. I'm retired from that now, but yeah, but that was another career. And that, you know, for me, it gave me a more stable life, allowed me to raise my kids, have a family. So, and that's part of this whole thing too, is like, it's hard to be a musician and have a family. And so, you know, there's different things you do in life.
Yeah. You wanted something different for yourself, and you made it happen. Yeah. What was it like going from music to science? I feel like it was all probably a part of you in some place, though, and you were able to kind of dig in and have this musical part of you that you still have today, and then also this science part of you that you still have, obviously, as well.
I mean, the way I look at that is people think they're different, science and music, but to me, they're pretty much the same. They're conceptual ideas, like especially higher math. It's more of how you think about it than it is about adding 6 and 7 together. So it's more about seeing how these relationships add in, and that's what music is too. So for me, it's not that different. I kind of like, they're both pursuits, and they both take focus. I think that's the other thing. You can't play music without focusing. You have to really focus on this kind of stuff. So it really takes your mind into a new place.
There's a rhythm in math as well.
Yeah, there is definitely a rhythm in math. Yeah.
Tell me about your musical ventures right now. You started the band Truly a couple years ago. You also have a band called Stereo Donkey.
Right.
So tell me about both of those, how they've developed and what you're doing with each one right now.
Okay. Well, Truly has actually been, we're on our 30th anniversary, believe it or not. And right now, Truly has really got some exciting news. We're looking at heading back out on tour, playing some live performances in the next year. Really looking to record new material, get that released, kind of get Truly resurrected back out on the road. Really excited to be bringing that back out to people. So that's been really fun. We've signed with a management agency, and that's been really helpful to us and helping us get our feet going. And so we're really excited to be moving forward. I also have another band that plays a little bit more locally called Stereo Donkey. It's like just a 3-piece instrumental band and kind of a punk surf band. And it's a lot of fun, no vocals. But so I got a little bit of irons in the fire. I'm doing this show at the Triple Door with Ed Roth Review. He's an amazing organist, keyboard player. Also with Matt Cameron's headlining the Is This Real band, which is going to be really exciting. So I got a little bit of everything going on. but really looking forward to having truly kind of back out on the road, getting records out, and kind of reestablishing ourselves.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the show, The Triple Door.
Okay.
It's coming up in September.
Yeah, September 13th. It's the Is This Real band, and that's headlined by Matt Cameron, drummer from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, so old buddy of mine. Really fun to watch him as he like comes out from behind the drums, because it's a man with many talents, and so it's really good to see him kind of like doing something different for himself. And this is, for me, the exciting part of playing music, is that there's always something new to do and something fun to do, right? And to show, and it's just fun to be able to show your talents and like share your music with people.
You mentioned earlier Chris Cornell and your friendship with him and relationship with him and how that started. What was it like when you heard of his passing?
Oof, man. Well, that's a tough one, because I was on my way to work, and the radio station I listened to on the way to work is kind of, coming from Sudden Valley, it goes in and out between the Seattle stations and the Vancouver stations. So I was heading in, and it's KUOW and a Vancouver station on the same frequency, and I was driving in, and I'm hearing this, and I'm like, that's Soundgarden. From one note, I'm hearing this. I'm like, that's not just any Soundgarden. That's Soundgarden that I'm on. That's weird that they're playing that on the radio. And this is at 6:30 in the morning. And then the announcement came after. No, I was like, well, that was weird. I got to work, and my phone was beeping and pinging at me. And I got in. I looked at my phone, and it's like, did you hear what happened? And that was I can't swear, that was quite a shock. Yeah, sad day. Really sad day.
Mm-hmm. How do you...
And it's tough, because, for me and Chris, we lived together. I didn't really actually know him that well, because he was very quiet. So it's just it's sad to know that, I shouldn't go any further. It's tough times. Yeah. Different stuff. Yeah.
In November, Soundgarden will be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you to have that honor as one of the founding members?
For me, it's really amazing, because, I know I'm part of the original story, and not to downplay it, because I'm definitely part of like what brought Soundgarden to this world. But really, those guys carried the torch and made it what it was. So I'm really thankful to them, and just kind of honored to be included with this, but also just excited for like that they got recognized for more than me. But also just that it puts us in a community, and just it really is an honor just to be kind of recognized for something like that, especially for me, this young Japanese kid from Park Forest, Illinois. It's a great honor. Yeah.
You've also been inducted into the Asian Hall of Fame. What was that like for you, and how has your heritage impacted your life and your music? And you kind of gave us a couple glimpses into that during this interview.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, the Asian Hall of Fame has actually been the kind of the honor that's really kind of spearheaded me getting my career back going. It really helped me understand that I am kind of unique in this world with that history of mine, of my family, the internment and growing up in this country. And I know that there are so many immigrants in this country that have similar stories. All our stories are a little different, but to me, the immigrant story and sharing those stories and understanding each other is really important. The Asian Hall of Fame really helped me kind of look back through my life and kind of reevaluate that. And it was shocking at first. It was something, and people talk about this now, it's called generational trauma. I realized that I was carrying a lot of the hurt of my parents, my grandparents. So it's just that honor, and it helped me deal with these things that were, kind of troubling to my past, and helped me really grow to a point where, some of the anger that I carried as a member of Soundgarden, and the music that came out of me, was because of that trauma, and part of what makes me who I am is all that stuff. but it's really helped me kind of come to grips with it a lot better, and to kind of understand, yeah, I still have my life, that stuff happened to them, but it's all about moving forward and hoping this world gets better for everybody in the future. And that's really my goal now, is like, where are we at? We've got to treat each other better. We're humans, and look at especially in this country here. Asian people helped build this country, but Hispanic people have always been here building this country. My parents grew up farming alongside Hispanic people. But Hispanic people are doctors, lawyers, tradespeople. They are the fabric of our society. All immigrants are a fabric of our society. And part of what it is to me is to say, hey, I've contributed to the society too. We're all part of it. I want you to recognize that, what would this be without me? What would this be without all these people? That's what makes this place a wonderful place. So, I'm for the American dream, believe me.
What is your message to many younger musicians or up-and-coming musicians that are trying to figure out their way, kind of how you figured out your way in a sense and had to make some more difficult decisions to get the life you wanted? What would be your message to them?
Well, to stick true to what you believe. I think that's one of the biggest things. Always play from your heart, and believe in yourself, right? That's part of this, is all believing in yourself and enjoying it. Music to me is something that's always there, always something new to come to. It's a lifetime experience, so enjoy that. And it's something it's amazing when you can share it. It really is. And I'm blessed to be able to have people love me, play for them. It's an amazing honor, really, to go up and play in front of people and have them love you. It's amazing, right?
And you've maintained your relationships with Kim, right? And
yeah.
The other members of your bands that you've had over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's good to see where they're at and how they're, how this is affecting them, and that, we're still all kicking.
What is next for you besides your show coming up, Truly, Stereo Donkey? What else do you want to do in your lifetime?
Wow. Well, a lot of it's happening right now. I mean, this is a lot of my dream happening right now. I got to say, playing music has always been something I love. For me, bringing the message of hope to people is something I want. I want us to get along. I want a world where we can converse again, understand each other. That's what this world is about more than anything else. It's not about creating barriers, it's about creating love. So that's where I'm at.
Well, congratulations on your honor, and thank you so much for sharing your story with me.